Imagine waking up to the kind of news that makes your stomach drop, your hands tremble, and your mind spin faster than you thought possible. Imagine seeing a headline, not on some tabloid website, not on a social media feed, but coming straight from the palace itself, that tells you something you never expected, something you weren't prepared for. In just 7 minutes, your world has changed. Your child, your bloodline, someone you love more than anything on this planet, is suddenly no longer in line for the throne. No explanation, no warning, just an announcement. 7 minutes ago, the royal family made a move that has sent Prince Harry into a fury and left the world watching, wondering, and whispering. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What could drive a man like Harry, a prince who has lived under the public eye, who has weathered scandals, media storms, and family tension, into absolute rage in mere moments? What could force him to threaten legal action against the very institution that defined his life? The answer, as shocking as it may seem, is that his daughter, Lilibet Diana, has reportedly been removed from the line of succession due to a citizenship review. The palace legal team has reportedly stated that unresolved citizenship issues and questions surrounding her birth documentation make her ineligible. You might be thinking, surely this is a mistake. How can this happen in modern times, with lawyers and advisors at every turn? But the more we dig, the more layers appear, and each one adds to a story of family tension, bureaucracy, secrecy, and raw emotion. What's happening here isn't just about one young girl's position in a centuries-old hierarchy. It's about family, identity, loyalty, and control. It's about power, who holds it, who enforces it, and who decides who belongs. 7 minutes ago, the news hit, and the reactions were immediate and intense. Buckingham Palace, usually a fortress of measured statements and carefully curated public image, released a brief statement that has set off a cascade of rumors, leaks, and frantic activity behind closed doors. Royal aides, normally calm and composed, were reportedly seen pacing the halls, whispering urgently to one another, trying to contain what they described as a rapidly escalating situation. The statement itself was concise, almost clinical, but it carried the weight of a bombshell. Lilibet Diana, the youngest child of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, was no longer eligible to inherit her place in the line of succession, pending the resolution of citizenship and birth documentation questions. Pause for a moment. Think about the impact of that sentence. Think about being a parent, a father, a mother, and knowing that your child's place in history, their symbolic role, and their future has suddenly been questioned. Not by an external enemy, not by circumstance, but by the very institution you trusted. How would you react? What would you do if someone came into your life and with a mere signature erased a piece of your child's future? This isn't just royal drama for tabloids to sensationalize. This is a parent's nightmare, magnified by public scrutiny, media frenzy, and centuries of tradition that leave little room for error or challenge. And make no mistake, Harry is furious. Sources close to the Duke say he was initially stunned, unable to comprehend the rapidity of the palace decision. There are reports of him pacing, making phone calls to advisors and friends, and even consulting with legal experts about the possibility of challenging the decision in court. Fury is one thing, but the combination of disbelief and a protective instinct for his child has pushed him into what insiders describe as a state of controlled chaos. His anger isn't aimed at the media, it isn't aimed at casual observers. It is focused squarely on the palace, on the bureaucracy, and on the legal machinery that has, in an instant, questioned the legitimacy of his daughter's place in history. You might wonder why this is happening now. Why would the palace choose to act on a matter of citizenship review at this precise moment? Sources suggest that the timing is not coincidental. Legal teams have been quietly auditing records, reviewing birth certificates, and scrutinizing nationality statuses for months, if not longer. In Harry's case, the fact that Lilibet Diana was born in the United States adds layers of complexity. Citizenship laws, succession laws, and the interplay between American and British legal systems create a web that is as intricate as it is fraught with potential for misinterpretation or, as some would argue, strategic maneuvering. At this point, you might be asking yourself, is this really about citizenship, or is there something deeper here? That question, while valid, leads to even more surprising revelations as we delve further. The palace's legal team, typically reserved, has reportedly been unusually firm in their stance, and internal memos hint at additional documentation issues that could, if revealed, raise eyebrows even among those familiar with royal bureaucracy. One insider hinted that the situation is more than a legal technicality. It may touch on historical precedents, family decisions, and a complex network of loyalty and influence within the monarchy itself. Imagine, for a moment, being Lilibet Diana. You are only a toddler, but already your life is the subject of international headlines, legal scrutiny, and family tension that most adults could barely navigate. Your parents are under stress, your position is in question, and you are the center of a storm that is growing by the minute. It is a situation almost unimaginable in scope, yet very real. And the implications aren't just about the line of succession. They touch on public perception, the future role of the monarchy, and the potential for family estrangement that could last generations. Now, let's step back and consider Prince Harry's perspective. He has spent his adult life under the glare of public scrutiny, defending his family, his wife, and now his children. He has battled the press, navigated royal protocol, and endured criticism for choices that many outside the palace struggle to understand. Yet this moment is different. This is personal. This is a direct challenge to his authority as a father, to his family's integrity, and to the very idea of legacy he hoped to create for his children. The anger is understandable, the frustration palpable, and insiders hint that Harry's response is likely to be decisive, but what that response will be remains shrouded in secrecy, at least for now. Even the public is reacting in waves. Social media erupted within minutes of the announcement. Hashtags trended. Memes circulated. Headlines splashed across newspapers worldwide. Some commentators praised the legal precision of the palace, citing historical precedent and constitutional necessity. Others decried it as cold, bureaucratic, and even cruel. And somewhere in the middle, the average royal watcher tried to comprehend the human impact of what is essentially a legal and administrative decision. The potential erasure of a child's place in a centuries-old hierarchy. But let's not forget the stakes. Lilibet Diana's removal from the line of succession isn't just a procedural hiccup. It represents a fracture point in the royal family, a legal and emotional fissure that could have ramifications for years. For Harry, this is more than a fight over documents. It is a fight for his daughter's future, for the integrity of his family, and for the principle that his child should not be punished for circumstances entirely beyond her control. And while the legal battle looms, there are whispers of behind-the-scenes drama that have yet to surface publicly. Who pushed for this review? Was it a neutral act of administrative diligence? Or is there a more strategic element at play, a political maneuver within the palace to assert control or influence public perception? These questions hang in the air, unanswered, creating tension and speculation that will only grow as the story unfolds. So here we are, 7 minutes after the announcement, and the world is holding its breath. Harry is angry, the palace is measured but firm, and Lilibet Diana is at the center of a storm far beyond her years. The implications are enormous, the emotions raw, and the stakes higher than ever. This is not a story about mere paperwork or legal minutiae. This is a story about family, power, legacy, and the lengths to which people will go to protect or control what they hold dear. But what comes next? How will Harry respond? Will the palace maintain its stance? And what secrets, buried in documents or whispered in hallways, could still come to light, changing everything we think we know about this royal family, their legal maneuverings, and the personal stakes involved? One thing is certain. This story is far from over, and the next chapter could redefine the line of succession, Harry's relationship with the monarchy, and the future of Lilibet Diana herself. The drama has begun, and the world is watching, waiting for the next move. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Have you ever received news so fast, so unexpected, that your world feels like it's tilting under your feet? That's exactly what happened 7 minutes ago in Buckingham Palace, and no one inside saw it coming. The announcement about Lilibet Diana's removal from the line of succession hit like a thunderclap, sending staff scrambling, advisors whispering frantically, and Prince Harry into a storm of disbelief and anger. Imagine being in the palace corridors, hearing the news travel from room to room, each whisper heavier than the last. Each person trying to make sense of a moment that could shift the course of history for one little girl and shake the foundation of a monarchy that has survived centuries. The palace is usually a place of controlled rhythm, carefully timed appearances, meticulously crafted statements, layers of approvals for every public message. But today, that rhythm fractured. A small cluster of aides first learned of the announcement internally. Their faces, usually calm and composed, betrayed shock. Phones rang off the hook. Security personnel were called to meetings. The atmosphere, normally serene and almost ceremonial, buzzed with tension. Staff whispered phrases that would normally be forbidden. Unbelievable. This changes everything. And Harry is going to explode. And Harry, the man at the center of it all, did not hold back. Sources close to him describe a scene of controlled chaos. Phones were pressed to ears, messages sent in rapid succession, legal experts consulted urgently. Imagine a man whose life has already been under relentless scrutiny, whose every move has been dissected in tabloids, now suddenly faced with what he considers an injustice, an arbitrary erasure of his child's place in history. How do you respond when something so fundamental is called into question by the very institution you once believed in completely? The official palace statement was short, almost chillingly clinical, but the implications were enormous. It read that Lilibet Diana was temporarily removed from the line of succession pending a review of citizenship and birth documentation. The legal language was precise, the kind of wording meant to leave no room for misinterpretation, yet it carried a weight no one could ignore. This was not just bureaucracy. This was a declaration that would ripple across the monarchy, the media, and Harry's family life. Why now? Why would the palace choose to act on Lilibet Diana's status at this precise moment? Insiders suggest that months of quiet audits and internal reviews led to this sudden decision. Citizenship laws are complicated, particularly for children born overseas to parents with dual nationality, and Lilibet's American birth introduced additional complexities. But even with legal nuance, the timing has fueled speculation. Was this a mere technicality? Or was there a deeper, more calculated motive, designed to unsettle Harry and place pressure on him to comply with palace expectations? Consider the emotional weight for Harry. This isn't a corporate dispute over policies or finances. This is about family. This is about his daughter. In that instant, the stakes shifted from legal theory to visceral reality. How can a parent stay composed when someone questions the legitimacy of their child's position, not in a classroom, not on a playground, but in history itself? Harry's fury, insiders say, wasn't just anger. It was a mixture of disbelief, protection, and raw, personal frustration. How do you fight against centuries of protocol, an entire institution designed to preserve tradition, when it seems to be acting against your child? The public reaction has been immediate, and it is messy. Social media exploded within minutes. Hashtags about Lilibet Diana's removal were trending globally. Memes appeared almost instantly, some sympathetic, some mocking, and some outright cruel. News outlets scrambled to report, speculate, and interview insiders, creating a feedback loop that magnified the drama exponentially. How do you keep control in a world where every reaction is magnified, every tweet dissected, every statement parsed for hidden meaning? Yet the legal complexities cannot be ignored. Succession laws are strict, but rarely enforced with such sudden and dramatic timing. The palace legal team is reportedly confident in their actions. They cite specific statutes and historical precedents that may justify the temporary removal, yet the documents hint at more than just legal compliance. There are suggestions that internal memos, email chains, and even private discussions have created a chain of reasoning that is as much about family politics as it is about law. It's a tangled web, and Harry finds himself caught at its center. Imagine the sequence inside the palace. Staffers rushing to gather legal documents. Advisors conferring in hushed tones. Secretaries typing urgent emails, making sure nothing is left unaddressed. Security personnel coordinating access and movement. And all the while, Harry pacing, making calls, his mind racing through every possible recourse. It is a maelstrom of protocol, power, and personal stakes colliding. No one has seen anything like it. And then there are the whispers from inside the palace. Certain aides hint that the decision wasn't unanimous, that some members of the legal team hesitated but were overridden. They speak of conversations where the line between duty and family loyalty blurred. Imagine the tension, legal minds arguing with conscience, staff caught between loyalty to the institution and empathy for Harry, the world outside watching every development. Could this internal conflict create openings for Harry to challenge the decision? Or will it only harden the palace's stance? The first public reactions began to filter out even before official statements were made. News anchors, commentators, and journalists tried to parse the legal and personal ramifications in real time. Questions were raised about precedent. Have similar cases occurred in the past? Could other royal children face the same scrutiny? Comparisons to historical succession disputes, some decades old, some centuries old, were drawn to give context, but the emotional dimension was impossible to ignore. The child at the center of it all, Lilibet Diana, has no voice in this process, yet her life and legacy are being debated worldwide. Meanwhile, Harry's private team began to strategize. Legal experts were reportedly called in from multiple countries to examine options, to challenge or negotiate. Public relations advisors weighed every possible statement. Friends close to Harry tried to calm him, yet they admitted privately that his anger was justified. How do you balance reason with emotion when everything you love and hold sacred is being questioned publicly? How do you fight when the world watches your every move? But the tension doesn't end there. The palace itself is navigating a delicate dance. Every decision must be carefully measured. Every leak must be contained. Every public statement calculated. They understand the optics. A child's removal from succession is more than law. It is symbolic, it is emotional, and it will be interpreted globally in ways that could affect public trust, media perception, and internal family dynamics. And while Harry is preparing his response, the palace braces for fallout, public, legal, and emotional. And now, a twist that few expected. Insiders suggest that documents unearthed during the citizenship review contain more than just administrative details. There are references to past correspondence, historical precedents, and internal debates that could complicate the narrative further. Some of these findings reportedly contradict statements previously made by advisors and family members. Could it be that the palace acted not only on legal review, but also on information that was kept private for decades? Could Harry be facing a situation where both law and history are working against him? The room for maneuver is shrinking. Every moment that passes without resolution increases tension. Staffers whisper. Legal advisors weigh the next steps. And Harry, determined and unyielding, continues to coordinate a response that could alter the course of the dispute. But the emotional stakes are rising with each tick of the clock. How do you fight when history, law, and family politics collide in a single, explosive moment? The world is watching. The media is relentless. And in the midst of this chaos, one child's future hangs in the balance, while her father prepares for a confrontation that may test every limit of loyalty, law, and love. The palace may think it has the upper hand, but Harry's fury is real, and his determination is unwavering. And just when you think the storm has reached its peak, a new revelation emerges. A leaked internal note hints at information that could overturn everything we've just learned. A hidden correspondence, a file buried deep in palace archives. And it might be the single piece of evidence that changes the outcome entirely. What is in that file? Who sent it? And how will Harry respond to a challenge that goes beyond anger, beyond bureaucracy, and into a battle that touches the heart of family loyalty itself? But what came next would change everything, and no one inside the palace saw it coming. Have you ever stopped to think about what it truly means to be born into royalty? Not just the title, the public appearances, or the glittering ceremonies, but the invisible weight that comes with a name, a legacy, and expectations you didn't choose. That weight, almost unbearable for anyone, rests squarely on the shoulders of Lilibet Diana, the youngest daughter of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And now, with the palace's sudden announcement removing her from the line of succession, that weight has become a focal point of international scrutiny, legal battles, and familial tension that could define her life before she even takes her first steps into history. Who is Lilibet Diana, and why does her position matter so much that it could send her father into a fury? Let's start at the beginning. Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor was born into one of the most scrutinized families in the world. Her name itself is laden with history and emotion. Lilibet, after her great-grandmother Queen Elizabeth II, a name whispered lovingly within the royal family for decades, a name that symbolizes continuity, resilience, and legacy. Diana, a nod to her late grandmother, Princess Diana, whose memory still commands devotion, controversy, and fascination around the globe. Every word of her name carries a weight of expectation, of public sentiment, and of legacy. It is easy to forget that Lilibet is only a child. At just a toddler, she is already the subject of intense media attention, legal scrutiny, and, as of 7 minutes ago, direct actions by the palace that could alter her life forever. To the public, she is a symbol, a young royal whose place in history seems predetermined. But behind the headlines, she is a child whose parents are grappling with an unprecedented challenge, defending her right to her legacy against an institution that, by law, can challenge and redefine it. Her position in the line of succession is not a trivial detail. Every member of the royal family occupies a place in a centuries-old hierarchy, determined by rules, precedent, and, in recent decades, evolving legal frameworks. Lilibet Diana's initial position in the succession line was significant, not only because she is a direct descendant of Prince Harry, but also because her presence represents the blending of old and new royal traditions, a child born of a union that crosses cultural, geographical, and media-driven boundaries. In other words, she is a symbol of the modern monarchy, global, interconnected, and under constant public scrutiny. But why does the palace's sudden removal of her from the line of succession matter so profoundly? It matters because it challenges the principle that children should inherit positions, rights, and legacies by birthright, free from political maneuvering or bureaucratic ambiguity. It matters because it strikes at the heart of Harry's protective instincts as a father, and because it raises questions about fairness, legality, and the very interpretation of royal succession rules in the modern era. Every child born into royalty inherits more than a title. They inherit the expectations, the responsibilities, and the scrutiny of a global audience. To strip that away, even temporarily, is to introduce doubt and tension into a world that thrives on tradition, continuity, and image. Let's consider the historical significance of Lilibet Diana's position. Royal succession has always been a matter of legal codification and public interest, but it has also been deeply personal. Look at the cases of Princess and/or Prince Andrew. Their positions, choices, and controversies have shaped how the monarchy navigates both internal and external pressures. Lilibet's removal, even if framed as a matter of citizenship review, is not just a procedural act. It is a precedent-setting decision, one that could ripple through the monarchy for decades, influencing how future generations interpret succession, citizenship, and the intersection of law and family dynamics. And yet, the story is more complicated than mere legalities. Lilibet Diana is also at the center of a narrative about belonging, identity, and recognition. As a child born in the United States, she embodies a bridge between nations and cultures, a young royal navigating spaces that are simultaneously familiar and foreign. The citizenship questions raised by the palace underscore this tension. While legally technical, they carry an emotional weight that affects how the family sees itself and how the world perceives the monarchy. The fact that these issues have suddenly surfaced in a public announcement amplifies the stakes and intensifies the personal dimension for Harry and Meghan. From Harry's perspective, the announcement was not merely inconvenient, it was an affront. For a father who has already experienced estrangement, media attacks, and institutional resistance, seeing his daughter's position challenged in such a public, dramatic way is more than frustrating. It is infuriating. Harry's fury is understandable. He is not reacting to theory or abstract legal arguments. He is reacting to the idea that someone, somewhere, is questioning the legitimacy of his child's place in a system he thought he understood. And yet, the irony cannot be ignored. This is a system designed to protect continuity and heritage, to safeguard the integrity of the monarchy and its lineage. And yet, in its effort to uphold tradition, it has potentially alienated one of its own members, creating friction between the institution and the very family that defines it. The tension here is palpable. How do you honor the law while respecting personal bonds? How do you maintain centuries-old protocols without eroding trust, loyalty, or familial relationships? The public perception of this move is equally complex. Many outside the palace see this as a clash between an ancient institution and modern parenting. Some sympathize with Harry, seeing the announcement as bureaucratic overreach and a challenge to parental authority. Others side with the palace, arguing that rules exist for a reason and that even the youngest members of the royal family must comply with legal and procedural requirements. The contradiction is fascinating. Lilibet Diana, a child incapable of understanding the legal complexities, is both a symbol of familial love and an instrument of institutional authority. And here is the most surprising element of all. Lilibet Diana's removal may not be permanent. Sources indicate that the citizenship review could take months, perhaps even longer, and that her eligibility could be reinstated if certain documents, proofs, or legal interpretations are satisfied. This adds a layer of tension and uncertainty that has everyone on edge. Harry must navigate not only the legal and bureaucratic hurdles, but also the emotional terrain of ensuring his child is not unfairly disadvantaged or publicly humiliated. Now, imagine Lilibet Diana herself, oblivious to the legal and media storms swirling around her. A toddler, too young to comprehend the significance of her position, yet already the epicenter of global attention. How do you shield a child from the consequences of decisions she cannot influence? How do you maintain her innocence while fighting for her rights in a world that scrutinizes, judges, and records every move? The paradox is striking. The more protection Harry seeks, the more intense the spotlight becomes. The legal and emotional stakes converge at a single point: documentation. Birth certificates, citizenship records, internal memos, legal interpretations. All of these combine to form a labyrinth through which Harry must navigate if he hopes to restore his daughter's rightful position. Every piece of paper, every signature, every clause matters. A missing stamp, a delayed filing, or a misinterpreted phrase could define Lilibet Diana's status and, by extension, Harry's ability to protect her legacy. And this is where the palace dynamics become even more fascinating. Some insiders suggest that there is disagreement within the palace itself about how to handle the situation. Certain advisors reportedly pushed for more discretion, suggesting that public announcements should be delayed until the legal review was complete. Others advocated for immediate disclosure, arguing that transparency was paramount and that any delay could be perceived as manipulation or secrecy. The result? A dramatic, high-stakes decision released publicly without the family being fully prepared, a shockwave that could redefine relationships, loyalties, and public perception. For Harry, the personal and political collide. He is not merely a father reacting to policy. He is a man confronting an institution he once served, an institution that now seems willing to question his child's legitimacy. The emotional tension is amplified by historical context. The monarchy has always been as much about perception as about law. Every action is scrutinized, every motive questioned. Harry knows this. He also knows that a misstep, whether in emotion or strategy, could be amplified worldwide. And the global audience is watching. Every media outlet, every commentator, every social media user is attempting to decipher what this means, not only for the royal family, but for the institution itself. Will Harry challenge the palace publicly? Will legal action follow? Will Lilibet Diana's status be restored? Or is this the beginning of a long, drawn-out battle over legacy, identity, and parental authority? The questions mount, and the tension grows. What makes this story even more gripping is the human dimension. A child at the center of a centuries-old institution, a father fighting to protect her, and a family navigating rules and traditions that have endured for generations. And yet, this is only the beginning. The documents, the memos, the internal debates, they hint at revelations that could make this conflict even more explosive. What secrets lie hidden in the records of the palace? What conversations, decisions, or missteps have contributed to this unprecedented situation? And most importantly, how will Harry respond when the next revelation hits, potentially shifting the ground beneath him once again? One thing is certain: Lilibet Diana's position, her significance, and the implications of her removal extend far beyond a simple line of succession. This is about legacy, justice, parental protection, and the collision of family with centuries-old institutions. And as the palace braces for what comes next, one thing is clear: the drama is just beginning. But what comes next would challenge everything Harry thought he knew about loyalty, law, and family, and no one inside the palace was ready for it. What happens when centuries-old tradition collides with modern legal complexities? When you think about royal succession, most imagine pomp, ceremony, and a clear-cut lineage. But the story of Lilibet Diana's sudden removal from the line of succession is far from simple. At the heart of it lies a citizenship controversy, one that has shaken the very foundations of the monarchy and sent Prince Harry into a whirlwind of anger, disbelief, and protective fury. Have you ever tried to untangle the web of nationality, birthright, and legal eligibility? Now imagine doing it while the world is watching, your child is at stake, and the institution you were born into is questioning your judgment. That is the situation Harry faces now. On the surface, the announcement seems like a technicality: unresolved citizenship issues and questions surrounding Lilibet Diana's birth documentation. But peel back the layers, and the situation is anything but mundane. To understand the gravity of the controversy, we have to look at the rules. The British monarchy operates under a combination of centuries-old statutes, modern amendments, and conventions that aren't always publicly understood. The line of succession is not simply a matter of birth order. Citizenship, religion, and legitimacy all play roles. In Lilibet Diana's case, her American birth adds layers of complexity. She holds dual citizenship, a fact that in the past might have been a formality, but one that now has significant legal implications. The palace legal team reportedly began its review months ago. Every document related to her birth, every certificate, and every piece of correspondence was scrutinized. They examined whether her American citizenship could, under current laws, conflict with the traditional requirements for succession. And when gaps, discrepancies, or ambiguities were discovered, the legal team apparently decided that immediate action was necessary. That action, of course, was the announcement that rocked Buckingham Palace just 7 minutes ago. But here's the twist that no one expected: the legal review did not reveal a simple clerical error. According to insiders, the documents hint at inconsistencies between the timing of her birth registration, the exact wording of certain official forms, and even the way her nationality was recorded in various systems. Some discrepancies are minor: a missing signature here, a delayed filing there. But in the eyes of palace lawyers, these minor issues could have monumental consequences for her eligibility. And Harry's reaction? It is nothing short of explosive. Consider this: a father who has already navigated the scrutiny of global media, the pressures of royal expectations, and years of public judgment, suddenly confronted with the idea that his daughter's birthright could be questioned by bureaucracy alone. The fury, frustration, and protective instinct are palpable. Sources describe him pacing, calling advisors, and consulting international legal experts, trying to find any avenue to restore what he sees as his daughter's rightful place. Yet the controversy is not merely legal. It is also deeply symbolic. Citizenship in this context is about belonging, identity, and the subtle balance between tradition and modernity. Lilibet Diana's dual citizenship embodies the tension between the monarchy's British roots and the global, multicultural reality of her birth. By raising questions about her eligibility, the palace has inadvertently highlighted the evolving nature of royal identity in the 21st century. It's a clash between ancient protocol and contemporary circumstances, and the stakes could not be higher. Interestingly, historical precedents offer some guidance, but also more questions. There have been cases in the past where members of the royal family face scrutiny due to citizenship or nationality, but few have involved a child born abroad with such high-profile parents. Each precedent carries nuances, exceptions, and legal interpretations, and the palace legal team has reportedly pored over decades of records to justify their decision. Yet, even with this preparation, the announcement has unleashed a wave of debate. Is this purely a legal necessity, or is there more at play? Consider the human dimension for a moment. Lilibet Diana, a toddler, is thrust into a world of legalese, court precedents, and international citizenship laws she cannot understand. Her parents, especially Harry, are forced to act as both protectors and strategists, navigating the choppy waters of legality, protocol, and global media attention. Every move is scrutinized, every statement is dissected, and the pressure is relentless. Adding to the tension, insiders hint that Harry's team has discovered additional complications. Some records related to her citizenship may not have been filed according to modern standards, or may not align perfectly with the requirements of the Succession to the Crown Act and other governing statutes. Each discrepancy, however minor in isolation, becomes a flashpoint in the high-stakes environment of royal succession. But the complexity doesn't end there. The American side of Lilibet Diana's identity introduces its own legal and cultural dimensions. U.S. citizenship laws are strict, but not always perfectly compatible with British royal requirements. Dual nationality can confer privileges, but it can also create conflicts, particularly when succession laws are intertwined with nationality. Harry's legal team reportedly began exploring every possible angle. Could a retroactive correction restore her eligibility? Could diplomatic channels be leveraged? Could court intervention challenge the palace's interpretation? Each option carries its own risks, costs, and public perception implications. And while Harry strategizes, the palace braces for backlash. Public opinion is already divided. Many see the action as necessary, a safeguard of constitutional law. Others view it as unnecessarily punitive, a dramatic assertion of power over a child who has done nothing wrong. This tension underscores the dual nature of the controversy: legal procedure on one side and raw emotional reality on the other. It's a collision of logic and empathy, tradition and modernity. Now, imagine the conversations inside the palace. Legal advisors weighing the exact wording of centuries-old statutes. Public relations teams drafting contingency statements. Senior aides debating how much to disclose without inflaming tensions further. And at the center, a child who is both symbol and reality, whose very existence triggers debates about law, family, and legitimacy. Here's a surprising twist. Some insiders claim that certain advisors had advocated delaying the citizenship review to avoid a public spectacle. They warned that making the announcement immediately could provoke Harry, generate media storms, and destabilize family relations. Others countered that transparency and legal compliance required swift action. The decision to release the news 7 minutes ago reflects a delicate balance between legal caution and public perception, a gamble that may or may not pay off. So what does this mean for Harry and Lilibet Diana? It means that the next steps are critical. Every document, every memo, every phone call could influence the outcome. Harry's fury is real, his motivation personal, and the stakes impossibly high. And the legal nuances are not just abstract. They directly affect whether Lilibet Diana can reclaim her place in the line of succession, whether she can grow up with a sense of security, and whether Harry can trust the system he once believed would protect his family. And while the world speculates, one fact remains undeniable. The citizenship controversy has turned what seemed like a straightforward announcement into a multi-layered crisis, with legal, emotional, and historical dimensions. Every action from this point forward will ripple outward, impacting not just Lilibet Diana and Harry, but the monarchy, the media, and the public's perception of fairness and justice. But here's the kicker. Sources hint that the palace may have more documents waiting in the wings, information that could further complicate the legal picture. Hidden files, previously undisclosed memos, and communications that could tilt the balance in ways no one yet understands. What these documents contain, who has access to them, and how they might influence Harry's next move remain unknown. And the question that looms over everyone involved is chilling. When the next layer of the citizenship controversy emerges, will it resolve the issue, or will it ignite a storm that no one can control? What happens next could redefine Lilibet Diana's future, Harry's relationship with the monarchy, and the legal interpretation of royal succession itself. But what came next would change everything, and no one inside the palace was prepared for the shock that was about to hit. What would you do if, after a sudden, shocking announcement about your child, you discovered that the story was far more complicated than anyone imagined? 7 minutes ago, the palace declared that Lilibet Diana was removed from the line of succession due to unresolved citizenship and birth documentation issues. That alone would be enough to shake the world. But what insiders are now revealing is even more astonishing. The palace legal team has uncovered bombshell details, details that no one outside these hallowed walls could have anticipated. Have you ever wondered what happens behind the doors of Buckingham Palace, in the rooms where decisions that shape centuries are made? It isn't just tea and ceremonial protocol. It's stacks of legal documents, urgent memos, confidential briefings, and debates that can stretch into the early hours of the morning. That's where the legal team convened, poring over every scrap of information about Lilibet Diana, from her birth certificates and citizenship forms to obscure communications about her registration and international documentation. The team, composed of seasoned lawyers, historians, and succession experts, reportedly went line by line, cross-referencing centuries of legal precedent. Every phrase was scrutinized, every signature verified, every potential loophole identified. And what they found shocked even the most experienced advisors. Discrepancies and ambiguities that could potentially cast doubt not only on Lilibet Diana's immediate eligibility, but also on broader interpretations of succession law. One such detail reportedly involves the timing and wording of her birth registration in the United States. Some documents suggested that the forms were submitted days after her birth, while others had minor discrepancies in names, titles, or addresses. While these might seem trivial to an outsider, in the rigid legal framework governing the monarchy, even the smallest inconsistency can have outsized implications. Harry reportedly saw red when he learned of this, interpreting the oversight, whether intentional or bureaucratic, as a personal affront to his family. But the bombshells didn't stop there. Insiders claim the legal team also discovered communications from senior palace officials debating whether Lilibet Diana's dual citizenship could be seen as a conflict with the Succession to the Crown Act. Some advisors argued that American nationality, even if technically allowable, might open the door to future legal challenges or political complications. Others contended that the law was clear: citizenship alone should not disqualify a child. This disagreement, once internal and confidential, now fuels the drama that has erupted publicly. And here's a twist that has analysts buzzing. Apparently, some of the documents hint at historical precedents where similar ambiguities were overlooked quietly, without public announcement. In other words, Lilibet Diana might not be the first royal child to face technical scrutiny, but she is the first to face it publicly, in real time, with her father reacting in fury and the global media observing every move. The optics are explosive. For Harry, the revelations were more than just legal frustrations. They were personal. He saw the process as not only questioning his child's legitimacy, but also undermining the trust and authority he believed the monarchy should uphold for his family. Sources say he immediately began strategizing, contacting legal teams, and exploring avenues to challenge the palace's interpretation. He wasn't just defending Lilibet Diana's succession rights. He was defending her as a person, as a child, against what he perceived as institutional overreach. Now, let's consider the timing of these bombshell revelations. The legal team's internal memos reportedly date back several months. Why release the information now, in a public announcement, instead of quietly resolving the discrepancies? Some insiders suggest that the timing may have been deliberate. Perhaps it was a calculated move to assert control, to demonstrate that the palace operates under rules that must be enforced regardless of personal connections. Or maybe it was a simple, bureaucratic decision gone awry, one with unintended but dramatic consequences. Either way, the result is the same. Harry is furious, the public is riveted, and the monarchy's image is on the line. One source even claimed that during an internal meeting, a senior advisor acknowledged, almost reluctantly, that Lilibet Diana's removal from the line of succession could provoke unprecedented legal challenges. That acknowledgement, leaked to select insiders, has only intensified speculation. Could this situation lead to a court battle that would not only affect Harry and Lilibet Diana, but also set new legal precedents for the monarchy? Could it redefine the balance between tradition, law, and the personal rights of royal children? And then there is the emotional dimension, one often overlooked when discussing legal intricacies. Imagine being Lilibet Diana, a toddler, entirely unaware that her legal status is being dissected by lawyers, debated by palace officials, and broadcast globally. Imagine being Harry, trying to shield her from the storm while simultaneously preparing to confront a legal and institutional juggernaut. The emotional stakes are off the charts. Every call, every memo, every discussion carries weight, not just legal, but deeply personal and painfully human. Even more surprising is what insiders describe as a series of confidential correspondences that emerged during the review. These communications suggest that certain advisors were aware of potential conflicts in documentation for months, but chose not to act immediately. Was this an oversight or a calculated decision to delay until the timing was politically advantageous? And if it was calculated, who stood to gain? Questions like these swirl in the palace corridors, unanswered but heavy with implication. The complexity of the legal review also extends to interpretation. Different advisors reportedly offered conflicting opinions on whether dual citizenship should disqualify Lilibet Diana. Some argued that because she was born abroad, specific procedural requirements had to be met for her to retain eligibility. Others insisted that no substantive law barred her from succession. That internal conflict, once confined to private memos and meetings, now has public ramifications. The very ambiguity that the palace seeks to clarify is being magnified by the announcement and by Harry's furious reaction. And here's the kicker. Insiders say that one particularly damning memo hints at the possibility of additional, previously undisclosed factors. These could involve historical decisions, unfiled paperwork, or internal interpretations that have never been tested publicly. If these factors come to light, they could escalate the controversy to a level no one anticipated, legally, politically, and emotionally. Harry, already on high alert, reportedly prepared for every contingency, aware that each revelation could reshape the narrative entirely. The palace's legal team, meanwhile, remains steadfast. They insist that their actions are consistent with law and precedent. They argue that the review is necessary to maintain the integrity of the line of succession, to ensure that no ambiguities exist that could be exploited in the future. To them, this is not personal, it is governance. But for Harry, and for anyone with even a shred of empathy, the move feels deeply personal. It is a collision of human emotion and institutional protocol, a clash that is as old as monarchy itself, but as modern as today's headlines. And while these bombshell details circulate internally, the public waits. Analysts, commentators, and royal watchers speculate endlessly. Could Harry successfully challenge the decision? Would the monarchy stand firm? And what of Lilibet Diana herself? How will this controversy shape her early life and the perception of her legitimacy? Each unanswered question only fuels the tension, creating a perfect storm of anticipation, curiosity, and emotional investment. But the palace, in its measured way, has more than just documents to consider. They have optics, public relations, and the fragile balance of internal family dynamics. Every decision, every statement, every leak is scrutinized, dissected, and interpreted. The legal bombshells are only part of the story. The human drama, the interplay of loyalty and anger, makes this a spectacle unlike anything the monarchy has faced in recent memory. And the most astonishing part? Some insiders hint that the bombshell documents could reveal connections or decisions from years past. Information that could call into question not just Lilibet Diana's status, but the integrity of the processes that govern the monarchy itself. What these connections are, who knew about them, and how they might influence Harry's next move remain closely guarded secrets. But when they emerge, they could change the course of the controversy entirely. What comes next is a question that hangs over everyone involved. How will Harry respond to a situation that is both legally complex and deeply personal? Will he accept the palace's explanation, or will he fight back with every tool at his disposal, challenging centuries of protocol in the name of his child? The tension is electric, the stakes impossibly high, and the next move could alter history. But what came next would set in motion a confrontation that no one inside the palace had anticipated, and it would bring secrets to light that could shake the monarchy to its core. What would you do if the foundation of your child's future suddenly shifted under your feet, and the very institution you once trusted appeared to question their place in history? That is exactly what Prince Harry faced moments after the palace's shocking announcement. Lilibet Diana, his daughter, was removed from the line of succession pending a citizenship review and documentation questions. And for Harry, this was not just an administrative hiccup. It was a direct challenge to his authority as a father, his instincts as a protector, and his faith in an institution he once believed would safeguard his family. Imagine the scene inside Harry's private quarters. Phones ringing incessantly, advisors whispering urgent updates, legal experts dialing in from multiple countries, friends and confidants sending messages in a flurry of concern and strategy. The Duke was reportedly pacing, alternating between silence and furious bursts of conversation, his mind racing to understand how this could have happened, and more importantly, how to fix it. It's important to grasp the emotional intensity here. Harry has spent his adult life navigating scrutiny, from tabloid headlines to public criticism, from royal protocol to global media attention. But nothing prepared him for this. The notion that his daughter, a toddler too young to understand her significance, might have her rightful place in history stripped away due to legal technicalities. The anger is personal, raw, and almost tangible. Sources describe it as a combination of shock, disbelief, and a protective instinct so powerful it borders on consuming. Harry's response was immediate. Legal counsel was mobilized. Every document related to Lilibet Diana's birth and citizenship was scrutinized. Every precedent in the monarchy's history was analyzed. Every possible avenue for challenge, domestic courts, international legal experts, and diplomatic channels, was being considered. And through it all, Harry remained steadfast, determined to ensure that the palace's decision could be contested, questioned, and potentially reversed. What makes this response even more fascinating is the precision with which Harry coordinated it. Friends close to him report that he did not act impulsively, despite the fury boiling beneath the surface. Instead, he combined emotion with strategy, balancing the urgency to protect his child with the necessity of crafting a plan that could withstand legal, public, and familial scrutiny. He understood that a misstep, a poorly worded statement, or an overreaction could fuel criticism, weaken his case, and potentially harm Lilibet Diana in ways beyond immediate legality. The emotional stakes cannot be overstated. Harry's fury is intertwined with deep-seated feelings of frustration over his family's treatment in the past, and perhaps a lingering perception that the institution can, at times, act with cold detachment. This is not merely anger over a legal technicality. It is a culmination of years of experience navigating the intersection of family, duty, and public scrutiny. And now, his child, innocent and unaware, is caught at the center of this maelstrom. Sources say Harry's strategy is multi-pronged. First, he has prioritized a private legal review to ensure that any potential missteps or oversights by the palace are identified and documented. Second, he has consulted advisors about the potential public response, weighing whether a direct statement, a controlled media engagement, or a silent strategy would serve his child's best interests. Third, he has reached out to international legal experts specializing in dual citizenship, succession laws, and constitutional rights, seeking every possible route to challenge the palace's decision. The stakes are massive, and Harry knows it. Every move he makes is being watched, by the media, by the public, and by members of the royal family itself. A misstep could be amplified globally. A strategic win could shift the balance of power within the family, sending a clear signal that even centuries-old institutions must contend with modern realities, parental rights, and public scrutiny. Harry is acutely aware that this is about more than just documents. It is about perception, influence, and the future of his daughter. Adding to the intensity is the emotional strain of balancing fury with diplomacy. Harry's advisors reportedly stressed the importance of measured responses. Every phone call, every statement, every interaction with palace staff must be carefully considered. He cannot allow anger to cloud judgment, yet he cannot ignore the personal nature of the affront. The balance is delicate. Act too aggressively, and he risks inflaming tensions. Act too passively, and his daughter's future could be jeopardized. Meanwhile, the public narrative begins to take shape. News outlets are dissecting every possible implication of Lilibet Diana's removal. Headlines speculate on legality, family dynamics, and even historical precedent. Social media explodes with opinions, sympathy, and outrage. Harry, aware of the global spotlight, must navigate a media storm while preparing for potential legal action. He knows that every word, every expression, every movement could be scrutinized, and the stakes are personal, legal, and reputational all at once. And then there are the family dynamics. While Harry is furious, the palace is reportedly calm but firm, maintaining that the review and the announcement are procedural necessities. Internal whispers suggest a divide among advisors, some sympathetic to Harry, others emphasizing institutional protocol. The tension is palpable. Harry's response is as much about defending his child as it is about asserting that the monarchy cannot disregard parental responsibility and emotional reality in favor of rigid legal interpretations. The emotional complexity of the situation is striking. Harry is not just reacting to law. He is reacting to a perceived injustice against his family, to the idea that an institution that once promised to safeguard the royal lineage could act in a way that feels cold, bureaucratic, and impersonal. His response, therefore, is fueled by emotion, strategy, and a protective instinct that transcends mere legal argumentation. According to insiders, Harry has also begun coordinating with Meghan Markle, ensuring that their approach is unified. Together, they are exploring ways to challenge the decision while maintaining dignity, protecting Lilibet Diana from media intrusion, and preserving their own public narrative. Their coordination reflects a combination of legal strategy, emotional preparation, and media awareness, underscoring the gravity of the situation. Even as Harry mobilizes, the palace remains vigilant. Staff are monitoring every development, preparing statements, and coordinating with legal counsel. The tension is electric, one side strategizing to reclaim a child's place in history, the other standing by legal interpretation and procedural justification. And in the midst of this, Lilibet Diana remains blissfully unaware, the innocent focal point of a storm she cannot yet comprehend. And the most surprising detail? Sources hint that Harry's fury is matched by a sense of urgency, that he is prepared to escalate the situation in ways that could redefine the boundaries between parental authority, legal oversight, and institutional power. The combination of love, anger, and determination makes him a formidable force, one that the palace reportedly recognizes and respects, even as it braces for potential confrontation. But the situation is far from static. Documents, memos, and internal correspondence could still emerge, introducing new complexities and potential twists. Each revelation has the power to alter Harry's strategy, intensify his response, or even shift public perception. The legal battle is only beginning, and the emotional stakes are higher than anyone could have anticipated. The questions now loom large. How far will Harry go to defend his daughter? Will the palace reconsider, or will they double down? And what hidden information might still surface, threatening to escalate the conflict to levels no one outside these walls can imagine? But what came next would push Harry into uncharted territory, forcing him to confront not just the legal implications but the personal, emotional, and historical consequences of a decision that affects generations. Have you ever witnessed a story explode across the globe in mere minutes, twisting and spiraling faster than anyone can keep up? That's exactly what happened moments after Buckingham Palace announced that Lilibet Diana had been removed from the line of succession. The news hit the internet like wildfire, igniting a frenzy that left social media ablaze, news outlets scrambling, and public opinion divided in ways no one could have predicted. Within seconds of the announcement, hashtags began trending worldwide. Hashtag Lilibet Diana, hashtag Royal Succession, and hashtag Harry Furious began circulating across platforms. Some were sympathetic, parents empathizing with Harry's fury, critics condemning the bureaucracy, or those questioning the fairness of a system that allows centuries-old rules to override the rights of a child. Others were mocking. Memes flooded in, exaggerating the drama, lampooning royal protocol, and portraying the situation as yet another episode in a seemingly endless royal soap opera. The speed at which the story spread stunned even seasoned reporters. Within minutes, media outlets from London to New York to Sydney were broadcasting updates, debates, and expert commentary. Every news anchor attempted to distill the complexity of succession laws, dual citizenship issues, and royal family dynamics into digestible headlines, often at the expense of nuance. The result? A global conversation that was part legal analysis, part gossip, and entirely charged with emotion. What is particularly fascinating is how divided public opinion became. On one hand, some commentators argued that the palace's move was entirely justified. They cited legal precedents, emphasizing that succession rules exist to maintain continuity and avoid disputes. They praised the swift action, suggesting that clarity, even if uncomfortable, was better than uncertainty. On the other hand, critics argued that the timing, the manner, and the public announcement were unnecessarily punitive, exposing a toddler to scrutiny she could not possibly understand, and antagonizing a father who has already endured relentless media attacks and familial strain. Social media, in particular, became a battleground. Twitter threads exploded with speculation. Was this a calculated move to pressure Harry into compliance? Was it an oversight, a bureaucratic error finally brought to light? Was there more lurking beneath the surface? Hidden memos, undisclosed documents, or palace politics waiting to be revealed? Users dissected the announcement with ruthless curiosity, amplifying every leak, every rumor, every insight.